There's a new movie coming out this week that got us thinking about documentary horror.
You might think that that's kind of a boring, worn-out approach, but we have 5 movies that we hope will change your mind.
Yeah, so welcome to this week's Fright Club podcast.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com. And the new one out this week is getting wide release this week that we're talking about is called What We Do in the Shadows. And it's I guess the word is mockumentary.
Yes. Christopher Guest style.
In the spirit of the great This Is Spinal Tap.
Exactly.
I don't know if it started the genre, but it certainly perfected it. But this one takes it in a vampire direction.
When you get 3 vampires in a flat, obviously there's going to be a lot of tension.
Nick, why don't you use the front door? You want to draw attention to this house,
You've got a whole documentary crew following you around.
You let a vampire hunter into our house.
Wait a minute, I just got my email. He doesn't...
Kill you! I'm already dead!
You will not eat the camera guy, maybe one camera guy.
That's called What We Do in the Shadows. And it was released small, in increments in the last couple of weeks. It goes wide this weekend. And it's always exciting to talk about a brand new movie that we just are in love with. So we're a couple of weeks away from a big undead ball in Wellington, New Zealand, and a documentary film crew has decided to follow 4 flatmates, all of them vampires, as they prepare for the big show. And it's just funny. It's kind of adorable. And the main guy, the guy who we have loved forever, Jermaine Clement.
Oh, what time is it?
It's business! It's business time! That's what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, let's get down to business. It's business time. It's business! It's business time!
It's business time. Jermaine, along with Brett McKenzie. I hope you recognize that. Flight of the Conchords, one of their greatest hits, Business Time. If you don't know Flight of the Conchords, check them out because that song, we should play the whole thing, but it'll take up too much time because it's hilarious. And they've got other great hits too. So anyway, but you've seen Jermaine. He's had a bunch of credits here lately. And Brett McKenzie has had some stuff as well.
He won an Oscar, actually.
He win
wrote
an Oscar.
all the songs for the Muppet remake and won an Oscar for it. But this is Jermaine.
Who is always funny. He's got, I don't want to say he's funny looking, but there's something about his look that is just funny in the faces that he makes. And he's so droll and so deadpan that he's always just hilarious. So I can see this is a perfect part for him.
Because you can tell, I mean, if you're familiar with what he looks like, he's a big guy, very dark complexion. He's got this booming voice, big teeth. And so he's really perfect for a vampire. And he plays the old Vlad the Impaler style vampire. And one of his other flatmates is referred to as, he was a 19th century dandy. And then there's a Peter in the basement who's meticulously styled on the old Nosferatu, which was just awesome. And he's 8,000 years old and he does whatever he wants to. And they have regular flatmate problems like, who's not doing the dishes and who's not putting down towels before they, spill blood all over their antique fainting couch and things like that. And then, it's just droll is a great word for it. It's silly, very lighthearted, but really funny send-up of that sort of day in, day out documentary style filmmaking. It's very much like a Spinal Tap. I mean, it's that exact same type of thing.
And what else? Another thing that it does, which is encouraging, in the last few years here, we've actually seen some very inventive and welcome takes on the vampire genre.
Right.
Because let's admit, I mean, it got old and tired. And I know everybody bashes on Twilight, and we do too, because we hate them. But it got to the point where you have a vampire again, because nobody could do anything fresh and inventive. And then all of a sudden they are. You have something like Only Lovers Left Alive. You have something like A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And even this, it takes it in a comedy direction. Yeah, there are still things you can do with this genre that are fresh and fun and welcome.
And this is definitely that. This is very fresh, and it's so funny, and they'll have them walking around Wellington. Who knew Wellington, New Zealand had quite so much large of an undead population? But one of the best parts is they'll walk past a group of werewolves, and the werewolves all act like they're sort of in a 12-step program, like they're trying to behave and behave well, and of course the vampires can't help but throw snotty comments at them, and then my favorite line is, we're werewolves, not swearwolves.
Right. They're admonishing each other for their language. Remember, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. So
and it's the main werewolf is Rice Darby, who's also from Flight of the Conchords, played their agent just hilariously, and he's great in this too.
Yeah, and that was out, as we said, wide release this weekend. So check it out if you can, What We Do in the Shadows. If you like that type of humor, and let's be honest, not everybody thinks the same things are funny.
Right.
And if you don't think Flight of the Conchords or any that type of humor is funny, all right, then you probably won't like it. But if you do, then you'll definitely get plenty of laughs.
And it's funny, if you do like it, I want to recommend another film, actually from 2010, that is a mock documentary about vampires. And it's blandly enough titled Vampires.
3 years ago, a documentary film crew went into the underworld of Europe's secret vampire society. There were several unsuccessful attempts. Until they met the Saint Germains.
So What We Do in the Shadows is great and funny. It's certainly more of a comedy than a horror film. And the thing about vampires is that, right from the opening credits, it's a little darker. It's a little meaner. A Belgian film documentary crew has reached out to document the undead population there in Belgium. And so you follow the first film crew as the vampire opens the door, invites the one camera guy in, closes the door, and then you see blood spatter on the window. And then they say, we lost the first two film crews. And then, in credits, on the screen, it says, this film is dedicated to the third, the memory of, and then they name the people of the last film crew. It's very funny. It's much more of a horror movie. It's not full on. I mean, it's a comedy above all, but it's a lot more of a horror
blood.
movie. There's blood. Yeah. It's more dangerous, but it's so funny. So they finally go and stay with a family. George, actually, is the patriarch, and then his wife Bertha, and George is very low key, very passive. He's funny. He's very funny. His wife Bertha, clearly insane. She's just nuts. Which is she's an interesting character. And then they have two teenage children, and the one, a rebellious teen, only if you're a rebellious vampire teen, instead of wanting to be a goth kid, she wants to be a human. So she's blonde and she wears pink, and the mom thinks she's hideous and she drives them all crazy.
That's a take on the old, remember the Munsters?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they had the one regular daughter. Yeah, that's made me think about that. Yeah, oh, she's so ugly. Anyway, go ahead.
And then they have in the kitchen, they have the woman who lives in their house that they refer to as Meat. That's her name. She's Meat, and she just stays in their kitchen. It's very dark. There's also the coop out back, and so once a week, the police drop off any undesirables, usually illegal immigrants. Just drop them off at their house, and they keep them in a coop out back. I mean, it's dark, but it's still very, very funny.
Don't give Fox News any ideas. They'll watch this. They'll watch this, go, hey, they've got it all figured out. No,
and then the conflict of the film is, if you get in enough trouble, if you break enough rules in this vampire society, they exile you to Canada. And it's just, I mean, it's, if you enjoy Flight of the Conchords, it's a little bit hard to find, actually, but it's really worth watching. It's especially if you're a horror fan and you want something just a little bloodier than. I
was going to say, this is, Flight of the Conchords has that type of humor. Is silly. This is more, dark.
It's darker. Yeah, it's definitely darker. But it's very funny. It's a comedy as well, and it's silly and goofy, but there's a lot edgier.
Yeah, for a movie that only came out 5 years ago, this one really slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, it's no one saw it. I don't know why that is. No one saw it. Well, it's a Belgian horror film, so those aren't hugely popular internationally, except with the two of us. Actually, I could name about 6 Belgian horror movies that I love, including, of course, Calvaire, my favorite Belgian horror movie. But still, this is really, really worth checking out. It's really, and it is honestly probably partly because of the incredibly bland title. It can be hard to find. So,
well, and then there's that other, I don't know when it came out, but there's a John Carpenter movie called Vampires, which is not very good.
No,
but it got certainly a lot more attention than this one.
Right, and then in the same year that this movie came out, 2010, the movie called Vampires Sucks came out. So even if you try to Google it, it's a little bit hard to find, but stick it out, look for it.
Right. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because that's a good point. This type of thing has been done many times with these scary movies, Scary Movie 2, and they're awful.
Right.
And they're not funny at all.
No.
But for some reason, they keep making enough money to make the next one.
Right.
And they are attempting, in a way, to do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's just not, they're just not funny. And again, I said a little while ago, people find different things funny. I don't find them funny at all.
No.
Or inventive or anything. They're just shooting fish in a barrel, the lowest common denominator, and they're not funny. But these couple of movies that we're talking about show you that you can take that idea and make it work.
But also, I mean, we're not going to focus strictly on comic films today, because also in 2010 was another really good horror-styled or documentary-style horror film called The Last Exorcism.
If you can't save my daughter's soul, I will.
Go! You should be compelled to leave this girl. If I deceive your Lord, you may be taken to the wilds of the desert. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command thee to be gone!
Yeah, and I remember when this one came out, for some reason I remember not having great expectations about it.
No, it's a very low budget movie, and just one of those, and there were several films, The Exorcism of Emily Rose,
Right.
and American Haunting. There are a lot of, it was part of kind of a boom of, low budget exorcism style films, but
This one was effective.
it was.
Let's not talk about the sequel, which was not effective at all.
No.
But this one, yeah, it really set the mood, and it had a really effective performance of the girl who was
Ashley
possessed.
Bell, Nell. Nell was the character.
Nell.
Yeah.
And her name is?
Ashley Bell.
Yeah, and she was good.
She was.
And the way she contorted and the way she pulled it off, I thought she was really good. And it's set up in a clever way, because it starts out by a guy who is looking to debunk these types of things, right?
Right. It's Cotton Marcus. I love this. So many horror films use the name Cotton for some reason for their characters.
Well,
anyway.
let's not forget Dodgeball.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, so Cotton Marcus is a shyster minister, and so he's trying to prove how across the South, families, Christians, are being taken advantage of by other shyster ministers who come around and pretend that they're going to do exorcisms. So he's going to hang up his shingle. This is going to be the last one he does, but he takes a documentary crew with him to prove that this happens all over the South.
Which, right there, the one more.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
we'll give you. That's a bit of a cliche. Okay, we're going to do one last score, one last heist, and then hang it up, so things won't go well. So that's a cliche, but you move past that, and it's set up well, because he gets there, and it starts. It's a little bit reminiscent of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because the closer he gets to the house, you start getting these harbingers of, ooh, look at these townsfolk, and there's something not right here. And so slowly, I think it's pretty well done. You get that sense of dread as he gets deeper and deeper into this.
The Louisiana Bayou.
Exactly, until they finally hit the house where it's all happening, and then it sets it up well. And then, of course, for his last one, he finds out that this one is not so easily debunked.
Yeah, because she really is possessed, of course. And he really is a shyster, so he can't do anything to help her. But like you said about Ashley Bell, one of the reasons I think that this movie transcends any of its sort of the cliches that you're going to come across is his name is Patrick Fabian, is the actor who plays Cotton Marcus. And you'd probably recognize his face. He's that guy. And he's mostly done television work. He's been tons and tons of TVs and commercial and whatever. And he's all in, and he does a great job with this character. And also one of the townsfolk that try to get the group out of there, you might recognize him because he's an X-Man now. Caleb Landry is his name, and he's the Banshee in X-Men. And he does a lot of horror movies too, Byzantium and Antivirals, and a lot of horror movies too. He's kind of weird looking. And he's perfect in this, as he is in a lot of horror movies. He just seems like hasn't had a lot of protein. He's a little sickly, and he's a little creepy, and he's and he's one of the ones that's like, can you tell me where such and such an address is? And he says, well, you get in your truck, turn around, get the hell out of here, and don't come back.
Right,
and so it's just one of those, like you're saying, one of those like, oh, we're not wanted. This isn't going to go well.
And also the guy, I don't know his name, the guy that plays Nell's father. He's another that guy. He's in a bunch of commercials. He's in a national commercial going around right now that I forget what it's for, but
Lewis Hartham is his name.
Okay, you'll recognize his face too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and he does a great job too, because
he
and it's a very small role, but it's an important one because you just don't know if what is happening to Nell is because her family has done something awful to her, or is she actually possessed? And so the dad, you need to feel empathy toward him and also fear. And so the guy, it is a pretty small role, but he does a great job with it.
He does. And you heard in the clip where he says, if you can't fix this, I'm going to.
Right.
And then it gets the shotgun because, as you said, this guy, Cotton, is a shyster, and he can't do anything about it. And they are trusting that he can. And so Dad decides to take things into his own hands. But it's effective. Like we said, don't waste any time on the sequel. Not worth it. But this one definitely is. If you haven't seen it, check it out. The Last Exorcism from 2010.
And then there's another one, actually, if I could just go back to comedies for a minute. There's a film that came out in 2007 that not a lot of people saw, but I absolutely loved, and it's called American Zombie.
We're here. We're dead. Get used to it. We're here. We're dead. Get used to it.
Being a zombie doesn't exclude me being human, right?
It's a new population, and a population that deserves our respect and social services.
John thought it was a joke. The zombies were a fucking joke, right? I did. Not anymore.
One of the reasons that this one works so well is that Grace Lee directed it. And prior to doing this film, she'd only done actual documentaries. So a documentarian approached a mock documentary and she also plays herself in the film. She plays documentarian Grace Lee, who is tracking down the burgeoning undead population in Los Angeles and following them around. And she's paired with, so she's an artistic, lots of integrity, by the books, interested in a documentary filmmaker, but she's been paired with more of like out for the lurid, details. If they're talking to some, undead woman in her kitchen, then the other director is going to sneak behind her and whip open the refrigerator and see if he sees brains, things like that. And it's clever, it's low key, it's funny throughout, and it's, I think, probably because Grace Lee knows how to do a documentary. It's an incredibly well put together film that really looks like a documentary, but it's very, very funny. And one of the other reasons that it works so well is because it is so funny and disarming that by the time it turns into a full on creepy horror movie, you're just taken by surprise. You're like, oh my God, look, this is happening now. It's just really, really enjoyable and really, really well put together. So I highly recommend you check out American Zombie.
And, of course, we saved the biggest one for last from 1999, The Blair Witch Project.
I just want to apologize to Mike's mom and Josh's mom and my mom. I am so sorry because it is my fault. Because it was my project. I'm so scared.
Now, this one, of course, I'm sure you remember, became a phenomenon, and since then has really become extremely polarizing, and I think for a couple of reasons. Anything that becomes that popular, you're always going to have the naysayers. Oh, it's not so much. Because now you go onto any message board or anytime somebody brings up the Blair, oh, dumbest movie I've ever seen. Wait, okay, I suppose if you don't find this type of thing scary, well, then I guess it would be. I did. I still think if you, it's hard to watch it now in a vacuum without all the things that came with it. But I think it's incredibly effective. I thought so then, still think so. Because it's all about, to me, the things that are the most scary are the things that your own imagination fills in that you can't see. And that's where this movie really excels. To me, movies that have people getting hatchets to the face are not scary at all. So if that's what you want in a horror movie, Blair Witch didn't deliver it. But I thought it was well done. Still is.
Yeah, I think when you watch it today, first of all, it's a much scarier film to watch in the theater than it is at home, where you have distractions. I mean, you need to be sort of in the dark with nothing but this movie. You know what I mean? You can't be like, oh, I'm going to run down and throw in a little laundry and then come back to it. It's not a film like that. Also, when it came out, and a lot of people disregard it now as like, oh, well, people only liked it then because they really thought it was basically a snuff film, which was the really very smart and at the time very novel marketing approach.
It was incredible when you think back to what happened. I mean, we had people. I remember my cousins.
Yeah,
I had to talk them. I had to really convince them. No, this is not real.
Yeah, they're not dead. These people are still alive.
So that was ingenious.
For anybody listening, yes, we are familiar with Cannibal Holocaust. We've seen Cannibal Holocaust, and obviously this took a lot of plays from their playbook, but. I want to right now debunk the idea that Cannibal Holocaust was the first found footage film, because it's actually an entire narrative film around the idea that they're trying to find the footage. And then, of course, at the end, they do find the footage. Right. And they also use that whole ploy that these people are dead. So there's a lot of similarities. But one of the differences is that movie sucks.
Yeah, it's nothing compared to Blair Witch. does it so much better.
Yeah. No, I mean, and a lot of people hate that movie because, of course, if you're familiar with it at all, they kill several animals, actually kill them on screen.
Nasty.
And then I don't like it because this is going to sound weird, but I like cannibalism in my cannibal movies, and this is really just a rape film. It
is. It's
a lot of rapes and a lot of animal death, and so nothing that we would recommend. But we do, even as we say that Blair Witch started this phenomenon. Yeah, they borrowed a lot of ideas from a much lesser film.
And if you remember, it's all based around footage from a documentary crew that went into the woods trying to find out secrets about this Blair Witch urban legend, I guess, in this area. And these 3 teenagers, of course, didn't believe it at all when they first go into they're joking and laughing, and what are they going to find? And, of course, things don't go well for any of them. And it's based, like you said, not a narrative making use of found footage. It's based entirely around found footage.
Yeah, the idea is that's all you're seeing. You're just seeing their footage.
And of course, it spawned lots of parodies, and that's understandable because of the way that this just took over the country.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it also started the entire found footage film trend, which is so tired.
So tired. And it also spawned a less than stellar sequel.
Yeah.
That was so less than stellar, it torpedoed plans for another one.
Right.
I think. So it's just focus on this one.
But it's funny when you talk about this. So, and now I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but because I watch horror movies every day, all day long, it's my favorite thing. And the one movie that scared me to death was the Blair Witch Project. Because you
don't like the woods, number one.
Oh my God, I hate the woods. And so my sister saw it first. She lives in Boston. It opened there before it opened nationwide. And she called us. She was like, "Have you seen it? It's like it was made to scare you, Hope." So we were so excited to see it. And it's true. First of all, it's everything that I assume is really going to happen when you go into the woods. It doesn't matter. Follow the stars. Use a compass. Have a map. You're never going to get past this goddamn log. It's the same log. And then, the twig dolls. I mean, I know that a lot of people look at it now as sort of passé, but I'm telling you, no movie terrified me like that one did. It's like it played on every primal fear I personally have.
Plus, can you imagine being lost in the woods with someone as annoying as Heather? I mean, come on. I know she took most of the screen time, but she was a little annoying.
She was a little annoying. And you know what, though? I think it's interesting to say, because you pointed this out to me not too long ago, Josh, the first to lose his tongue and life.
Yeah.
He's actually gone on to a pretty healthy career. He's done a lot of work. The other two kind of disappeared, but not. And I think probably because he doesn't really look like Josh anymore. You may not realize it, but I'm relieved to see that at least one of those 3 guys, those 3 people, went on to have decent careers.
Yeah, because as I said, it's hard now to even think about it, talk about it, watch it. Clearing your mind of all the excess baggage that has come with it. But I think from a filmmaking standpoint, it's effective. It's well done.
Certainly groundbreaking.
Groundbreaking, ingenious, especially for the budget at the time that they used. And, there are parts of it, I think, that really work. You mentioned Josh losing his tongue. I love that sequence.
Oh, yeah. No, it's awesome.
When he loses his tongue, he disappears, and then they find the tongue. Well, Heather finds the tongue. She doesn't share it with Mike. And then you hear
him yelling.
Presumably Josh yelling.
And Heather knows it can't be Josh, but Mike doesn't. Oh, my God.
So and then, of course, the end, just standing in the corner.
Oh, my God. Super creepy. It was so creepy. It was really well done. And, and the thing is, so we're going to stop. This is going to be, that's our capper, right? The Blair Witch Project. But there really are a lot of good movies in this particular vein. One that we're not really going to cover, but I just love is TrollHunter. That's a weird one. That's really well worth checking out. And then another one that I like a lot is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which is a slasher spoof, like a documentarian goes in to follow a serial killer, and they upend all of the very traditional slasher tropes. It's a clever one. It's worth checking out as well.
Yeah, and by the way, if we missed any, let us know. We keep the conversation going on Twitter. We're at MaddWolf. That's MaddWolf. And by the way, thank you for the great comments. We did get some great feedback last week on the White Death podcast, especially from Sean, who pointed out one that you liked.
Yes. Sean, that was my favorite comment because he brought up a 2008 movie called The Children, which is creepy and it's one where you're uncomfortably cold. Like you feel, personally, I am cold right now based on what's happening in this snowy death scene. So that was a great one, Sean. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, appreciate that. So if, not only on Twitter, but you can leave some voice feedback on the Golden Spiral Media line. That's 304-837-2278.
Or you can use their SpeakPipe widget to record an audio contribution. You would just go to goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback and upload a pre-recorded audio file. These all come directly to us, and we love to get that kind of feedback.
We do. So keep it up. And before we go, we do want to say a fond farewell to Leonard Nimoy, passed away a few days ago. And we were thinking about his horror movie resume, and it's really not that large, is it?
No, it's just Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but he's great in it, and what a great movie. What a great movie. And yeah, Leonard Nimoy is perfect in that. Yeah, so fond farewell to Leonard Nimoy. And we could do a whole show on Shatner's bad horror movies, though. And his bad hair.
Yes, we could. All right, so check out What We Do in the Shadows out this week if you can. And until next week, I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
Stay frightful, my friends.